Hey, good evening, Saints fans and Houdads from all over the world. Yes, it's Kyle T. Mosley, and I am back with Mr. Bob Rose. What's going on, Bob?
Not much, Mr. Mosley. It is so good to see you live and in person. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I know we have been sporadic in our Wednesday night broadcasts, but I hope you've been tuning in during the off season for any live updates, and certainly during our pregame and halftime reports through the first 3 weeks of the season. Mr. Mosley, welcome back to the living world of the live camera, sir.
Yeah, I am back. I didn't want to hurt you guys, scorch your corneas any further than you had to this season. But the New Orleans Saints are now 2-1, and this Sunday they face the New York Football Giants. And here to discuss what's going to happen in the Caesar Superdome, Bob. I got to get used to that. Caesar Superdome.
I'll tell you, it's weird. It's weird to write in our articles. It's weird to say. It's weird to hear. And you and I are of the age. It'll always kind of be the Louisiana Superdome to us.
Yeah, exactly.
That voice of Brent Mushburger echoing in our heads. You are looking live at the Louisiana Superdome. But I mean, the sponsorship is good. They've done some work in the Superdome, and Kyle, you've been inside the building. But before the franchise was chased out of the city. So tell us a little bit about fans that are going to be attending the game on Sunday. Tell us a little bit about.
No. I haven't seen the new renovations. John did.
So, I apologize.
Yeah. So I wish I had, but I know we got a glimpse into the renovations from the article that Caller had, as well as John had, and it looks fabulous. I know those field level view boxes are something to be able to really die for. So that's going to be some great viewing there for the Saints fans as a whole. Guys, it's exciting. Hurricane Ida may have delayed what's happening with the New Orleans Saints, but Saints football is back in the city of New Orleans. So don't forget, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, as well as on Twitter at Saints News. You can follow me at KT Mose. Bob, you can follow him at Bobby R2613 on Twitter. And let's bring in longtime beat writer from the New York Football Giants herself, Miss Patricia Traina. What's going on, Patricia? How you doing?
Hello. How are you, gentlemen?
How you doing, man? Look, you guys don't know this lady should be in the Hall of Fame of sports writing, man.
Oh, you're too kind. Hey, listen, when you were talking about the name of the Superdome, we actually have a different name for it up here. We call it the House of Horrors, because when the Giants have played there the last 3 games, all kinds of funky, bad things have happened. The score has been, it's turned into a shootout. It's just been ugly for the Giants. So we call it the House of Horrors.
The House of Horrors, man. But I tell you, that game against Eli, that was a classic to this day. I think that was one of the best played games between Drew Brees and a Manning that we can actually say.
Yeah, that was something. I remember that one, the back and forth. And I think I must have changed my article, the lead to my article. Gosh, after a while, I just said, that's it. I'm just going to wait till this game's over. I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah. Were you in the press box that day?
I think I was. Yeah, I think I was, because I remember it being so loud, and I remember finally having to put earplugs in because it was so loud I couldn't hear myself think.
Wow. Well, that's what the Superdome does to you, man. If you're not used to the noise, but you guys in New York can get kind of rambunctious as well, Patricia.
Yeah, well, they've been doing a lot of booing, and rightfully so. So and it's been loud and it's been noticeable, but yeah, not a whole lot to cheer about, unfortunately, with the Giants lately. Although we did have Eli Day, so that was something.
Yeah, well, look, Eli Day should have been like a homecoming. I guess they thought the Falcons was going to be an easy win. That was really bad for them, a bad look to have Eli enshrined, have his jersey retired and lose in the manner that they lost. We'll talk a little bit more about that, Patricia. Guys, don't forget, if you want to have some comments, put them in the chat box. If you have some questions for Patricia Traina. Now, Patricia has been covering the Giants, is it over 30 years now?
About 30. Let's not make me too old now.
When she
I'm only
she was a
25, you
teenager,
know.
guys. She was a teenager, and she's been covering, but she's been through several regimes already. And, you know, Patricia, we got to start with the obvious. David Gettleman, as well as Coach Judge. What's the beat? What's the tone right now going on with the writers and the media to what's going to happen with these guys if they continue their losing ways at this time?
Well, I think if they continue down this path, Dave Gettleman is not going to be here next year. They invested, I want to say, about $200 million in free agency. And on paper, they had themselves a nice looking team, but we all know that you can take paper and you can line a birdcage with it. It doesn't mean anything. So yeah, granted, you can't count on injuries, and the Giants have had some injuries, but to me, the biggest factor, and I don't think this is being talked about enough, and I don't mean to be swinging a baseball bat here, but I've got to say this because, like I said, I don't think this has been talked about enough, was how Joe Judge handled the preseason. And it's interesting because I just got off the phone with a friend of mine who covers the team, and we were talking about this, and I was like, I did not agree with how Joe handled it. Now, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, he did not play his starters in any significant snaps until the final preseason game because he wanted to take a look at what he had, guys who weren't going to make the roster. Just, I guess he wanted, his justification was, well, they're getting good work in, during the week, so we don't have to play them. I'm sorry. You have to play your guys. You can't say, oh, they're getting good work in practice. You can't simulate game speed and game snaps in practice. And I think a big fallout, if you will, is the Giants came into week 1 and they were sloppy. They came into week 2, they were still sloppy. Last week against the Falcons, still sloppy. And the team was like, or the coaches were like, well, this is kind of an extension of preseason. And I'm like, what? You're in the regular season. These games start to count. You have 2 games in 5 days, one of which is against a division opponent, and you're telling me that you're still in preseason mode?
Yeah.
That's not right. I'm sorry. And I had a big problem with that. I'm like, you got to play your guys. This isn't Alabama. This isn't New England. You don't have Tom Brady on your roster. You don't have, superstars on your roster. You've got a young team that has to gel together. You had a lot of new playmakers who admittedly they were injured, but you had an offensive line you were trying to put together. Why in God's name would you not play them? I just don't understand it.
Yeah, well, and I think also it kind of showed some rustiness going into the season. And I think that's where you're coming from, right? But what I can't understand is the fact that you have a premier running back like Saquon, and he's not getting the touches that's necessary, and he's not utilized in the manner that you thought he should have been used. Now, I know Judge is a very conservative coach, right? And he likes to have a conservative game plan. But do you think a lot of this also falls on Jason Garrett?
I think so. I think, to be fair, though, to Jason, he only had Saquon. If you think about it, he only had Saquon for what, 5 quarters last year?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, last year, COVID, the pandemic wiped out the spring football. It screwed up the format of training camp. I'm not trying to make an excuse here. I'm just trying to be fair and look at all the pieces here. So, but that's what film is for. That's why you go back and you look at the film and you say, okay, this kid did this at Penn State, similar, maybe what Penn State did here is similar to what we're doing here. And then you just build off of that. And it just seemed like, Jason, I remember last year, I think it was week 5 or week 6, Jason dropping a hint saying, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm still learning about what I have and what these guys can do. In week 5 or week 6.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. And that's what I guess where I'm coming from, and I'll let you ask this question, Bob, is the fact it's not like he didn't have a star running back for all those years in Big D, right?
Right.
So if you have a star back in Big D, can you utilize him the same way? I'm just saying that seemed like a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, remember, they also had an all-world offensive line down in Big D. They didn't have that here in New York. That was a problem. That offensive line last year was all over the place, and they supposedly fixed it. You know, they said, okay, and you probably remember the story. Dave Gettleman said that, okay, we have confidence in our offensive line. You know, it's year 2. They're all playing together. They know each other. We hired all these new coaches, Rob Sale and Pat Flaherty. We moved Freddie Kitchens over to help with this. We're going to be fine on the offensive line. Now, again, to be fair, they didn't count on Shane Lemieux getting injured. They didn't count on the retirements they had. Zach Fulton retired. Joe Looney retired. Right now, the Giants are going through, I think they're going to have their 5th offensive line, if I'm not mistaken, in 4 weeks because of injuries. But that said, you know, don't tell me this line is fixed and, you know, they didn't address it. I mean, they didn't do anything. Shouldn't you have the depth? You know, the depth was a question. They were counting on Matt Parrott to win the right tackle job. Well, guess what? Not only did he not win it, now they've got him working at guard. He's not even working at tackle to where you could say he's the swing tackle.
Wow.
Nate Solder is the right tackle. So, yeah. I mean, come on. Did you maybe underestimate things a little bit with that unit? I think you did.
But that sounds like a GM issue. I'm just going to say that. Bob, go ahead.
And Patricia, you kind of answered part of my question already. I was going to ask you about the offensive line, but I want to go back to Saquon Barkley. To you, does he look? And I realize the school of thought for a recovery time after an ACL injury for a running back is a full calendar year. After they've been hurt before they really feel comfortable once rehab starts. But does Saquon look confident and healthy to you, or are all the issues the blocking up front?
He looks healthy. Does he look confident? I can't say that he does. I see too much dancing. I don't know if he's dancing because he's looking for the home run ball, or is he waiting to give his guys up front more time to open something up? I don't know the reason for that. I understand he did that in Penn State sometimes. He did a little bit of that dancing, which, by the way, irks me because it's like, just hit the hole and go. That's why I always was, my followers always used to say that, they're like, well, what do you see in Wayne Gallman? Wayne Gallman used to hit the hole and go. He took what he got. Whereas Saquon is like constantly looking for that home run ball that's not going to be there every time.
Right.
So I think it's a combination, to be honest with you. Part of it is on Saquon for looking, if he's dancing because he's looking for the home run ball, that's on him. But that said, that offensive line, week 2, they were shuffling that offensive line. They moved Nick Gates out of center, put him at left guard. They put Billy Price in there. Who makes that change that early? When you start screwing with the offensive line and that chemistry that you supposedly built up all summer, now you're running a risk. So I do think that's part of the problem. That said, I don't absolve Saquon of the issues that they've been having.
Yeah, and not to exacerbate the problems that you guys have, if you turn to the defense, you lose your best defensive player on for the year. How's that going to impact those guys losing Martinez?
I have no idea how they're going to do it. I mean, they're going to have to come up with a combination of guys. I mean, look at it this way. They have Tate Crowder. They have Reggie Ragland. If you could put Reggie Ragland's head on Tate Crowder's body, you would have the perfect inside linebacker. I really believe that. And I don't mean it as an insult to either guy. It's just that Tate Crowder is he's probably the more athletic of the two. Okay. Reggie Ragland is the veteran, so he's seen a lot. He's a great downhill run defender, but in coverage, oh my goodness, I don't want to see him in coverage.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I really believe that, you look at the Giants and you see how the middle of the field has been wide open, especially for the tight ends. That's been the problem. It's been the inside line, the off-ball linebackers, because they're not as athletic as you would like them to be. They don't have a Luke Kuechly amongst the group. Yeah. All right. So you couple that with the fact that the defensive backs have been playing in the next county. And now all of a sudden you have these big swaths of open field to where, guys can run free and exploit holes in the zone coverage. And it gets ugly. And you sit there and you say, Patrick, being a defensive coordinator, Patrick, dude, why aren't you having these guys, these defensive backs, play closer to the line? Why aren't you having them jamming guys and instead of giving them free releases? What are you doing? Yeah. You basically have softened the defense up, and I don't understand it. It's like, why fix what wasn't broken?
Well, it sounds like they're going to have a long time in the Superdome coming up, because
I fear that
exploited, right?
I fear it. I really do. I mean, look, my listeners and my readers, they know that I try to be optimistic. I try to look at both sides of the coin. I try to be fair, but you got to give me something to believe in. And right now, I'm having a hard time finding something to believe in. There are a few bright spots. I like this kid, Ojulari. I think he's going to be a stud. Daniel Jones hasn't been horrible. But there's not a whole lot else I can sit here and say, yes, I believe. And it's, people ask me all the time when I come on these shows, who are you going to pick, the Giants or whoever they're playing? I can't pick the Giants. I'm sorry. I mean, if that means I've got to turn in my membership card to running Giants country on SI Fan Nation, then so be it. But I got to be true to myself.
Yeah. Wow, that's tough to hear.
I know. I hate to say it, but, I need something to believe in. I really do. And right now, I've seen sloppy football. I've seen a lot of mistakes. I've seen some questionable coaching that just, I was making a list. It's funny. I'm working on a story about this, and I put together a list of head scratchers. And one of the head scratchers, I think it was against, was it against Washington or it might have been against Denver when Joe Judge threw a challenge flag after a score, which we all know you can't do. And his explanation was, I wanted to get the officials' attention. And meanwhile, he cost himself a timeout.
But all scores are reviewed, right?
Right. You can't do that. And then, this past week against Atlanta, they wasted 2 timeouts in the second half because they weren't lined up properly. What's going on? This is what I mean when I say I need something to believe in. And I'm trying, believe me. I like I said, I like Ojulari. I think they have some good young talent, that they're going to develop. I haven't given up hope on Kenny Golladay. I think eventually Kenny Golladay is going to break out. I'd like to see Kyle Rudolph involved more. I mean, I don't understand why he's been invisible the last couple of games. Well, actually, I do, because it's been probably the way the play calling has gone. But I need to see more.
Wow.
And I when I've been watching the film on the Giants, both sides of the ball, one thing that did stand out that I think you could probably hang your hat on. I think this team has a potentially very good pass rush, and it's led by Ojulari, who, by the way, was one of my favorite pass rushers in the entire draft. But I like Lorenzo Carter, too. Leonard Williams has had a heck of a start to the year. They seem to be extremely thin in the front seven. And you already talked about the coverage a little bit. You have James Bradbury, who made the Pro Bowl last year. You brought in Adoree Jackson, who was drafted originally by Tennessee for his man coverage abilities. So do you know why the defensive game plan is to have those guys give so much cushion when you have the ability to put the pressure on a quarterback, but that quarterback has an easy and a quick check down because you're given so much cushion with your 2 primary man-to-man corners?
The only reason I can come up with is they're afraid of being beaten deep. That's the only thing I can come up with. I mean, look, I just wrote something today about the use of the safeties and how I would maybe change a little bit up there, because I'm not sure they're using their safeties to their strengths. And this just goes back to, okay, I know you have to change up things. You can't run the same things over and over. Although the great Vince Lombardi once said, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing until you figure out how to stop me.
Stop it. Yeah.
Yes. And I took a little liberty with that quote. I think he was referencing a running game or something. But anyway, the point
That's
being
sweet.
is
Our sweet.
right. But the point is, you know, you got to be true to yourself. You can't just come in and say, okay, I'm going to suddenly play James Bradbury 8 yards off the guy, when James Bradbury's strength is getting in a guy's grill, if you will, and knocking him around. You know, I just don't understand the thinking there. The only thing I can come up with is they don't want to get beat deep. And I don't know what the stats are. I apologize. I should have looked it up, but the Giants, they're giving up chunk plays. They're giving up long drives. They're not getting off the field. Their third down defense, I think, isn't very good. And I think they're kind of defeating their own purpose here and maybe outsmarting themselves a little bit by having changed too much. I mean, when you make a radical change, I mean, that would be like me dyeing my hair or bleaching my hair blonde. That's a radical change, as opposed to just putting a few highlights in there that you don't really notice unless the sun hits it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or me growing some hair. Yeah, I got you.
Well, and to your point, Patricia, and I only research this because, like I said, I'm doing my own preview articles for our side of SI. The Giants have given up 75% completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. And when I realized that, again, you know, going back to Adoree and Bradbury, and we know very well what Bradbury can do from his days in Carolina, I was absolutely shocked at that statistic.
I was too. I definitely was too. But again, tight ends have burnt them seemingly forever. And I go back to, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I go back to the lack of playing time in preseason. You know, you can't simulate, and the coaches have said this, you cannot simulate the speed of the game in practice. You just can't. So don't sit there and say, well, you know, James Bradbury got a good week of practicing. You know, he practiced in, I don't know, 60 reps. So I'm going to back him off for the preseason game. Isn't that what it's for, to take all the stuff that you're working on in the lab and try it out against an opponent as opposed to your own offense? That's where I had a problem with it. And, you know, people said to me, well, you said that the offense was looking good and the defense was looking good. Well, yeah, I mean, when you're going against your own guys, one side's going to look good and the other side's not going to look so good. But if you're going against somebody else, that's when you can tell for sure if they're headed in the right direction. So I had, you know, I'm like, okay, I don't know the calls, but gee, you know, Daniel Jones looks like he's got all day to throw the ball. Great. You know, but is that because the defense was told to back off and not rush him? I don't know. So, I mean, it's hard, but I can only go by, you know, I can take educated guesses and I'm not always right, but that's how I see it.
Gotcha. All right, guys. If you want to join the broadcast, you want to ask Patricia a question live, let me know. Give me a who dat out there in the comment section. I'll send you the link. Or if you just want to sit back and listen, just keep on listening. All right, Patricia, we talked a little bit about what's happening, some of the ills and some of the bright spots as well. The game plan going into the Superdome, how do you think the Giants need to attack the New Orleans Saints?
Offensively, I would say, and this is where I get nervous because the Giants, like I said, are going to have another offensive line, and that place is loud. So I'm concerned about the noise. I'm concerned about that, the effect. You know, the Giants are going to have to work on a silent count, I think, for a lot of that game. I would try and get that running game really going. I would lean on that running game. The Giants also, we need to mention, maybe without Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, both of whom have hamstring strains. So if I'm the Giants, and by the way, the Saints have a really good defensive front. Let's not, you know, leave that factor out.
Very
so offensively, I think you've got to get that running game going.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of quick passes has to be in the mix. Get that ball out of Daniel Jones's hands quickly. And let these speedsters, the Galladays and Kyle Rudolphs and, Colin Johnson, I think is going to see a lot of snaps. Let them do what they have to do. Kadarius Toney, get him involved for Pete's sake. I mean, why they haven't gotten him involved, I don't know. But so offensively, that would be the plan. Defensively, they've got to find a way to get after Jameis Winston, because Jameis is still the same Jameis that he was in Tampa Bay. You rattle him, he will mess up. Now, my understanding is the Saints offensive line has a couple of injuries. Armstead at left tackle, and I think there's a question mark regarding your center. I don't know where he's at. I don't think he practiced today.
Eric McCoy, I think he's out this week as well.
So take advantage of those, of the backups if you can. Get some penetration. See if you can penetrate that line. Because look, when the Saints offensive line is healthy, they probably have one of the best offensive lines in all the league. Right now, they're not 100% healthy. So you've got to cash in on that. Get that young pass rush going. Play the guys a little bit closer to the line. I'd be surprised if Jameis beats you with his arm. I think he's more of a short range to intermediate range type of guy. You also don't have your number one receiver, Michael Thomas. You don't have your number two receiver, if I'm not mistaken. Kamara is the guy that I'm worried about.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be playing 15 yards off the ball. Play a little closer, and see if you can't somehow figure out how to bottle up Kamara.
Right. And that was the game plan for the New England Patriots. But what the Saints countered that with was more rushing plays, right? The problem with the receivers is that they're not gaining separation. And, I'm about to come out with an article, guys. Look, Marquez Callaway, supposedly our number one receiver right now, he only has 2.3 yards of separation. That's nothing. And I think he was ranked 14th lowest in the league for a starter at receiver. That's not good. So we're talking about if you key in on Jameis, and you saw what Carolina did, right? They tried to take advantage. They blitzed him, heavy pressure, frustrated him as well. But like you said, Kamara can burn you, right, Bob?
Absolutely. And Patricia, I was going to ask you about that with Martinez out. And I see the same thing that you mentioned in Reggie Ragland. He's a man you want to come straight forward. He's not a guy you want in coverage at all. How are the Giants going to contain Kamara when he comes out of the backfield as a receiver? Are they going to use Jabril Peppers on him? Because that's kind of Jabril's strength. Jabril's not a guy you want on man coverage on a wide receiver, but he's like an extra athletic linebacker. Is that the way they're going to try to contain Kamara?
I think so. I think that makes the most sense here because, Kamara is a guy. I don't think I would put Xavier McKinney against him because of the size factor. I think Jabril's stockier and I think he's a little taller, if I'm not mistaken, than McKinney. I don't remember off the top of my head, but he's definitely stockier. So that's who I would kind of have there as your pseudo linebacker, that star linebacker type of role. Because, Kamara, that dude, I'm telling you, he's your key. He's your key. And if they can't stop him, it is going to be a long afternoon. I mean, I think they can match up well with the receivers, the tight ends. And I expect the Saints to use a lot of 12 personnel. I think, as a matter of fact, I saw a stat. I think they used, so far this season, have used 12 personnel on 33% of their offensive snaps, which is right up there with the highest amongst the league. Mm-hmm. So I'm expecting a lot of heavy personnel packages from the Saints on offense. And the Giants have to counter that with some heavy defensive packages.
Yeah, and I think that's the one way the Saints can be able to set the tone, control the line of scrimmage, not fall back and try to pass protect, and like you say, get some of those leaks headed into Jameis Winston's direction to be able to frustrate him. And we don't want to see any more of those Hail Mary type of passes. I know Sean Payton doesn't want to see that. We have Jerry. What's going on, Jerry? Welcome to the show. You have a question for Patricia. How you doing, man? Jerry?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
Kyle Mosley.
Good to see you, my friend.
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
We're doing good. We're doing good, Jerry.
Yeah, it's been a while, Mr. Kyle Mosley, Mr. Bob Rose. Well, I'm always gonna see Bob Rose under the dome. I'm always gonna see him.
I'm everywhere, man.
Yeah, we can't hold Bob
yes,
down. That's the problem. Bob gets kind of rusty. He's a runner. He's a track star.
Look, Bob Rose got connections.
He got serious connections. I need to have some of those connections pay us off. Well, look, Jerry, do you have a question for Patricia?
Exactly.
Hey, do you have a question for Patricia?
Yes, I do. Hello, Miss Patricia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Nice to meet you.
Same here.
I do have a question for you. I know we're getting ready. Yes, ma'am. My question to you is this. I know we're going to talk about the game this coming Sunday, but what is your memorable Saints versus Giants moment? I'm talking about like in the past up to now. What's your favorite moment?
Oh, gosh, I have so many. You're talking personally or from a game perspective?
I'd say either, Patricia.
Either. Whatever comes to your mind, Patricia.
I'm going to say the first time I set foot in the Superdome, because I had never been in there. You know, the Superdome, I had read about it growing up. I had seen it on TV. You know, I used to watch Giants football games with my father growing up as a kid. And I would see it and I would be like, wow, that place is cool. You know, I just had a fascination with domes. The first time I set foot in there,
it is.
I was like blown away. I'll tell you a funny story. I actually set foot in there. I had gone on a road trip. At the time I was young. I wasn't covering the team. I had gone with my father and my mother down to New Orleans, and we went to the Superdome. And I'm almost embarrassed to tell this story because it's so silly. But when we went to the
restrooms,
I had never seen a trough before. I was like, what is this? I was like, what is this? We don't have this up by us, you know? So that was kind of funny. But no, I was just blown away by the experience. It was loud. I remember walking out of there and I was like, what? You know, for 2 days afterwards, I was like, I couldn't hear it because I had ringing in my ear from the sound. But it was a great experience. And I absolutely love the city of New Orleans. The people are fantastic. The food, the music, the drinks, everything down there is just, it's great. And I have so many favorite memories down there covering the game. I mean, I could probably give you a whole list that would take up the rest of this show, but that was my first one. I would say is probably my most memorable one.
Wow.
All right, Jerry. Any last questions?
I got you, Miss. Yeah, just a couple of things. Referring to what Miss Patricia was saying about her experience coming to the Superdome in the past. Let me tell you something. When I was around 12, 13, my first time stepping into, by that time it was the Louisiana Superdome. It was a preseason game against Chicago. I never will forget because my father brought tickets for us for that game, and then the following week, when it was another preseason game against Minnesota, and you talking about one of the best seats we had in the house. Oh my goodness, you could tell from Miss Patricia's perspective coming to that game. Look, it was an experience and an atmosphere for myself. And I enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right.
And,
Well, thanks, Jerry, man.
And the last question I'm gonna give you, I know it's gonna be a prediction, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. I've got the Saints winning this game 35-7 on Sunday because I see a few key players coming back. That offensive. See, somebody was practicing, and hopefully they'll be ready by Sunday. But the dome gonna be on fire on Sunday. I'm gonna just give it to you. And before I go, shout out to everybody in the chat that's in the chat. Who that to everybody? But I just wanted to just give my thoughts and opinions before Sunday's game.
Well, look, Jerry, man, we appreciate you as always. Thank you so
Love
much,
you, Jerry.
All right, that was Jerry, man. He's a loyal follower of our program. But Patricia, that was an interesting prediction there, 35-7. We'll talk about your prediction a little bit later, but here's my thought. I want to go back to Jameis. You guys on the East Coast, and y'all been covering. You've been covering NFL for a while. You've watched the young man come into the league. What's your opinion of him other than being a gunslinger? Do you think Jameis can be able to adapt to the system that Sean Payton has?
I think Jameis, throughout his career, if I'm not mistaken, he's gone through a couple different systems until it's stabilized a little bit. And by the time it's stabilized, he was on his way out of there. Sean Payton, remember, he used to be the offensive coordinator for the Giants years back.
Right.
So I'm kind of familiar with what he ran. I do think Jameis, can be effective in that system. I think when he gets his full supporting cast back around him, Thomas, if he comes back, your number 2 receiver, I apologize, I forget the gentleman's name.
Traquan Smith.
Traquan Smith, yeah. Just give him a good supporting cast, like any quarterback. I mean, you've got a good offensive line when healthy, like I said. Kamara, who is, I think he could be any quarterback's best friend. So I do think Jameis can be successful. He just has to play smart. And I think when he was with Tampa Bay at times, sometimes he didn't play the smartest game. But Sean Payton will make sure that he stays on track, I think.
All right. And I have to ask this question. What did you think about that touchdown pass that he had in the end zone to Marquez Callaway? A lot of people have dissected that up and down this past week. What's your thoughts?
I got to confess, I didn't see it yet.
Oh,
I haven't gotten that far. I haven't gotten that far.
Right.
I apologize.
That's okay. It was a Hail Mary. But
I probably saw it.
In all credit to Jameis, he did tell Sean Payton when he got to the sideline, it was all God.
Okay, well, there you go. No, I have to be honest with you. I've been I've been writing nonstop over at Giants Country, and I've been doing my podcast over on Locked On Giants. So I haven't had time to breathe. I have filmed. We did the defense today, so tomorrow we're going to do the offense and see how we break it down. So I'm sure I'll see it when I look at it.
Okay, all right.
Patricia, I want to stay at the quarterback position, and you talked about that you thought Daniel Jones has been playing better than what people have been giving him credit for thus far this season. Is he? And I agree with you. I think the Giants, I think they have a very underrated receiving core. I love the addition of Rudolph at tight end. So I think the talent is there around Daniel Jones. Is he the right quarterback for Big Blue going forward?
We're going to find out. I mean, look, Daniel, to me, looks more comfortable in this offensive system, which is good. Is he over that hump yet? I mean, I still see some plays that he misses. He had the fumble back in week 1. So I think the jury's still out, but he is trending in the right direction, I think. At some point, though, you're going to need him to load up that team on his shoulders and just carry them over the finish line. He tried to do that against Washington,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
and came pretty close. Was it
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that call at the end, which it shouldn't have come down to that call to begin with. I mean, let's be honest there. If the Giants made a couple plays on defense before that, we wouldn't have gotten to that point. Last week against the Falcons, I felt he went back a little bit more to that game manager role. So I need to see consistency. Now I have seen, he's cut down on interceptions. I don't think he's thrown an interception. I forget how many pass. It's at least 100 pass attempts, I think, since he's thrown an interception.
Yeah. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yes,
so that
104 pass attempts on the
104.
season.
Okay, so that means to me he's reading things a little bit better. He did have the fumble. He also had the botched snap last week against the Falcons. So that stuff's got to get cleaned up. So yeah, I think he's trending in the right direction, but I'm not ready to say, okay, I'm going to forget about Eli Manning just yet and say Daniel Jones is now the man,
Right. Yeah. And, speaking of Eli, I know he had his jersey retired, Ring of Honor, and all this other stuff. And you talk to some of these guys who are on the Pro Football Hall of Fame voting and everything. What's your opinion here? We asked, I think we talked to Jeff Duncan, remember, about Eli and a couple of these other guys. And, Jeff is a voter. What's your opinion? Do you think Eli has an opportunity? He brought home 2 championships. I don't understand why they're not giving him more love. 2 championships is nothing to sneeze at in this league, right?
Right. I think the reason why he's not getting enough love is because of his record, his 1-loss record, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it at 500 or just maybe a hair over 500? But if you throw in the postseason, he's got a winning record. Now that said, and I'm honest here, I mean, I think a lot of people know that I'm a big Eli fan. I admire the guy, but I'm being trust me, I'm being objective here. You got the 2 Super Bowl championships, all right. The Pro Bowls I don't care about, because that's a popularity contest, but also the availability. That guy never missed a game because of injury. And he was banged up during his career. There were times when you sat there and you said, how is he going to go out there and perform? He had the foot injury a few years ago. I think it was plantar fasciitis. I think he had. He hurt his shoulder one year in a game against the Cowboys at Dallas. Then there was the time he had the high ankle sprain in the finale against Washington. They got, that was the last game of the season, but he needed ankle surgery and he wasn't really right to start the next season. A lot of people don't know that. So, but he never missed a start because he was hurt. And that right there is pretty significant. Matter of fact, if it hadn't been for Ben McAdoo, Eli probably would have never missed a start. I mean, we all know that story. But just to me, I would say, yes, Eli is a Hall of Famer. I know I've had this debate with other reporters who have covered the team, and they say, nah, he's not there. He if you put him in, you got to put Phil Simms in. Well, I don't see that the same way. And I growing up, I was a Phil Simms fan. Still am. I still like Phil Simms. But Eli, to me, his credentials, and no disrespect to Phil and what he did, but Eli's credentials are head and shoulders above Phil's. And
I guess to me, what really gets me is like, who's my man from the Raiders? Plunkett. Love Jim Plunkett. 2 Super Bowls as well, right? But Eli, you can't say that the wins were totally his on his own, and the losses were totally his on his own.
Right.
It's a team ball, right? And some of those teams were not very great for the New York Giants. Football Giants, I love to say that. But when it comes down to, like you said, when he played, when it counted, when they needed to get into the playoffs, remember, Bob, a lot of times they were like a game or 2 behind and they went on the street, right? And Patricia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Eli played well in the crunch times that he needed to play.
He did. I think he had over 30, was it over 30 or over 40 fourth quarter comebacks? Yeah. And you know, the other thing with Eli, remember the 2 championships, I think the Giants were wild card teams going into the playoffs. And can I also just say this about the record? The organization failed him later in his career.
Yes.
They did not give him a solid offensive line. After that great offensive line that he had from 2007 to 2010 started to get banged up and retire, it took them to 2013 before they finally drafted with a high premium pick an offensive lineman?
Yeah.
Okay. How did they expect this guy to function? He had, you know, he also didn't have a running game. You know, he had Odell for a little bit, but that was basically it. They failed him, plain and simple. And he still went out there every week, still gave a good effort. But, you know, he's one guy. Football's a team sport. You need the other 10 guys around you on offense to be winning. And he got that earlier in his career, you know, and that stretch of time between 2006 and I think 2010 was some of his best football. 2011, we'll throw in that year too. Some of his best football. I think
were those the years with Sean Payton as well?
Sean Payton, no, he was with Jim Fossil when Jim Fossil was the head coach. Okay. Sean Payton, I don't believe he wasn't an offensive coordinator here.
Okay. Yeah, Sean had Kerry Collins. Sean had Kerry Collins.
Yeah, Kerry Collins and Jason Garrett too for a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. I love those Giant teams, but Patricia, I have to agree with you. I think Eli is going to ultimately be in the Hall of Fame. He did his best work on the grandest stage of them all. And the fact that he knocked off an undefeated team in the Super Bowl.
Right.
He loaded that team on his back.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Quite literally on that one pass down the field. And I think that's what's going to get him in. But I agree with you, too. If people are going to say that that's what clinched his spot, but his overall body of work between 2007, 2008, and 2011, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the game. And especially in the fourth quarter with the game on the line. And listen, we feel your pain. You know, you talked about them not surrounding Eli with enough offensive linemen to protect him. In New Orleans, we went the opposite end of the spectrum. Sean Payton put a line in front of Drew Brees, but outside of Michael Thomas, he never gave him a receiver to throw to. And I think that's what happened with Brees down the stretch. Just like with Manning, you know, you kind of saw their game crumble a little bit faster than what it needed to at the time.
Yeah, and if I could go back even further, when Archie played for the Saints, who did he have around him?
Yeah, right.
You know, so I remember those days. You know, I was young, but I remember those days. Yeah. Archie didn't have much around him either. No, that's why you know what I'm talking about here.
He was running for his life all the time.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I understand where you're coming from. All right, let's kind of we got 15 minutes left. Let's kind of go into a different direction. How was your relationship with Sean Payton when you were covering the Giants?
I got along with him. I'll tell you. You want to hear a funny story about him?
Go ahead.
And me? All right. So back in the day when the Giants were in the old Giants Stadium before they built MetLife Stadium, every President's Weekend, I used to go down and I used to do a series of interviews. I would talk with the GM, who at the time was Ernie Accorsi, the assistant GM. And then I would stop in and I would chit chat with, you know, the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator. And I remember sitting in Sean Payton's office, and that was the year they were getting ready to draft Jeremy Shockey. And there had been rumors that was the guy they wanted.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and I was still kind of a young reporter, so I probably had no business saying anything, but I remember sitting in Sean Payton's office and I said, I hope the hell you don't draft this guy. and he sat back in his chair and he looked at me and he goes, why would you say that? And I think at the time, I can't remember the Giants needed offensive linemen or defense. I can't remember what they needed, but I said, because you guys need whatever it was they needed at the time. Well, lo and behold, they go and they draft Jeremy Shockey. And that was the year the Giants played in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I was at that game. And Shockey had a, I don't want to say a breakout game, but he had a pretty solid game. And I remember going down at the 2-minute warning. We're standing on the track. I don't know if you've ever been to Canton. I don't know the name of the field, but the field that they play the Hall of Fame game on.
It's now Tom Benson field.
It's now Tom Benson, but I forget what it was called back then. So anyway, we're standing on the track, and the game ends, and Sean Payton walks by me, and he stops and he looks at me and he goes, "How about that tight end we drafted?" And I looked at him and I said to him, "Don't go putting his bust over there." And I pointed to the building, the Hall of Fame. I said, "Don't go putting his bust over there," quoting Parcells. And he just looked at me and laughed and kind of went like this. And I said, "Okay, we'll see who gets the last laugh." And sure enough, who got the last laugh?
Yeah, well, look, Shockey was big time for us in that Super Bowl. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, but for the Giants, I'm saying, he kind of the bottom fell out. And, I think when Jim Fossil was moved out and Tom Coughlin came in, they used Shockey a little bit differently, and it wasn't a fit for what he did well. And it just, it's unfortunate that relationship ended the way it did. But thankfully, they made their peace, Shockey and the Giants organization. And I think he's been around a little bit more than, he was in the past.
Good. All right. So, Patricia, going into this game, other than Alvin Kamara, any other concerns that a Giant fan would have facing the New Orleans Saints?
The defensive front. Now, I'm going to get my names wrong, but I did look at this. I swear I did. You guys had somebody, I believe, your top defensive lineman who was suspended, I think.
Yeah.
And
you have some.
Yes, and you have the guys that have been filling in for him have been playing really well.
Yes.
Yeah. So the defensive line versus that Giant offensive line, which, as I mentioned before, is going on its fourth different starting combination in a loud place. All right, that worries me. I'm going to be straight with you. That worries me.
I think you should be worried more about the edge rushers, right, Bob?
That too. Cam Jordan's going to go up against Nate Solder.
Yep.
I think you guys play Jordan on the left side, if I'm not mistaken. So that would put him up against Solder at right tackle. So that concerns me, absolutely. But the interior, I'm concerned about the offensive. I'm concerned about the pit. Period.
Yeah.
So.
And Patricia, like Kyle pointed out, I think the Saints have, even with Marcus Davenport out, I think the Saints have the deepest core of edge rushers in the league. But Daniel Jones has really underrated mobility. If you were a defensive coordinator attacking the Giants' pass pocket, and I get what you're saying about their offensive line, I see the same things that you're saying, but how would you attack Jones to keep him from beating your defense with his legs? Would you focus on bringing pressure up the middle, or would you keep with your strength, and that is your outside edge if you're New Orleans?
I would say probably up the middle, because if I'm not mistaken, most of Daniel's runs have come up the middle in between the tackles. So that's where I would probably attack. Obviously you want to set the edge regardless, but definitely you want to take away some of those inside running lanes, I think, and maybe force him to go outside where you have the speed to maybe track him down if you need to.
Yeah, what I find surprising that Daniel Jones, not Saquon, not
leading
even Devontae Booker, he's the leading rusher.
And I don't like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I do not want my team's quarterback, leading the team in rushing. Something's wrong especially when you have Saquon Barkley on your team. Something's wrong there. And, the other thing with Daniel, as a runner, I get it. The legs are a weapon. I get that. But dagnammit, every time he lowers that shoulder and he dives first with his head, I keep saying, and you can ask my husband this, I say every week, he's going to get dinged. You watch. He's going to get dinged and he's going to miss time. And he's done it already. He's gotten dinged a couple of times in his first 2 seasons, and he's missed games. And that drives me nuts because, if you're going to run, slide. Slide, come on, and above all, don't be the tough guy. Oh, I've got to get that extra yard. Take what's there, call it a day, live to see the next down, and just there's nothing wrong with that. Who are you trying to impress here?
Well, I tell you what, the Saints secondary is nothing to sneeze at these days, and those guys love to hit. So I don't want to see him going against Chauncey or Malcolm Jenkins getting hit, because those guys will put some pain to him, as well as Demario Davis and the linebacking core. Yeah. All right. So let me ask this. Okay, you talked about the concerns. Who are some of the players that you really like on the New Orleans Saints defense?
That's a tough one, because I got to give props to the whole unit. I mean, I think the job they have done, they got after Mac Jones in the Patriot game. I was like, all right, this is a defense this is a defense that's got my attention, So, I mean, Cam Jordan comes to mind, obviously, because, he's just so good at converting speed into power and just, tracking guys down. I mean, the push up the middle, you guys have a good defense. I don't remember the ratings, but I don't think I think the lowest rating you guys had ranking was 17th. And I think that was in pass defense. I'm not sure.
Defense. Yeah, that's the
pass but otherwise, you've got. I think were you number 4 against the run, if I'm not mistaken. I think. Yeah, I know it was top 10.
They slipped down to number 4. I don't know how, but because
I thought. All right, but my point being is that group is playing together well, and there's really nobody on there. I mean, from the outside looking in, and I don't cover them obviously as closely as you guys do, but I don't see a whole lot of weaknesses there that I could say, the Giants can exploit this.
Yeah, like Malcolm Jenkins said in the presser last weekend after the Patriots win, is that the defense is the strength of the team. Mm-hmm. And these guys are confident that they know they are the strength of the team. And I think that's good, boding how inconsistent the offense has been thus far for the New Orleans Saints. If you have a strong defense to support them, Breeze didn't have that all the time.
Right.
And I think they could have put some skins up there, a couple more banners up there if he did have a more compliments on the defensive side versus just having a strong offense all the time.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Defenses win championships, right?
Still, yeah.
Yeah. Bob, anything you want to ask Patricia?
Patricia, I'll tell you what, and thank you for the props to the Saints defense. I think Dennis Allen, the coordinator, deserves a heck of a lot of credit too, because he uses these pieces the right way. He doesn't. You don't want a guy like Malcolm Jenkins in man coverage on an athletic tight end. You don't want a guy like Zach Bond on a Saquon Barkley in coverage in the open field. And Allen does a good job, to prevent that. But do you think that the Giants, and like you said, the Giants are going to need to have balance to quiet that Superdome crowd and get off to a good start? Do you see them using Barkley on inside runs or trying to get him to the edge in their running game?
Typically, I think they've had more success with him, and I'm just going off the top of my head here. I don't have the numbers, but he's been more effective with those outside zone runs. When he was injured last year, they switched more to an in between the tackle thing because that better suited Wayne Gallman.
Right.
When you ran or when they ran Saquon between the tackles, it wasn't pretty all the time. It was frustrating actually. So I think my guess is if you're playing to the guy's strength, you send him on those outside runs. Now the question is the knee going to hold up for that? So far it has. So I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, but I think that's the approach they take with him.
All right. We got one guest, CT Crusher. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are y'all? Can y'all hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. I'm sitting in my car and I don't have my headphones, so I just recently found out it could be speakerphone I'm talking on the thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna give a call because I really want to ask this question to Miss Pat.
Go
Miss
ahead.
Pat, it was enjoyable listening to you. I love your acumen and your intelligence of the game. I can totally tell that you're passionate about your team. And I always felt like a Giants fan is like an unyielding grit. It's like we got these flaws, we got these woes, but that's my team, and we're gonna go with it. And a lot of times, out of many, you guys do flourish. You guys do punch somebody in the mouth and make something happen. The toughest teams have the biggest heartbreaks, and I think that's the biggest stories of seasons. And it could be earth shattering, or it could be galvanizing. It's just about how the team sees it. But you guys had some close games. But I know I called in late. I do want to ask this question about Eli Manning and what he means to the Giants over the years. I've just noticed how sometimes Eli Manning is almost like a forgotten hero, or he's like, an unsung hero of the Giants. And I ask myself all the time, is his reputation kind of besmirched? Because, it wasn't like you guys won the Super Bowls in like a dominant fashion. It was very miraculous. And it was almost like, wow, I can't believe this happened. But at the same time, did that dynamic make it seem like, what did we do exactly? Because we really didn't really play well that game. And also, Eli Manning has always been a very, just laissez-faire and chill and calm and poised and stoic. And you never really seen like that fervor and that like a fiery guy. He's always done what he had to do on the field, but off the field, he's never, it's not like he's Joe Namath. It wasn't like he was taking the media by storm and having, ultra charisma and, being like a darling in a way. Do you think that some of you guys and some of the fans look at it that way?
Well, first off, thank you for the kind words you said earlier. I appreciate that. Eli actually does have a personality.
Yes,
I know
yes.
a lot of people don't see that. I can remember, talking to him one-on-one in the locker room, and we'd be talking about receivers, and I say, well, what happens if this happens? He goes, well, if they want the ball, they're going to do what I say, so
okay.
he would say it with that kind of glint in his eye.
Yeah.
But I do think, there's a saying, and I'm sure it's not exclusive to New York. I'm sure it's been said all over the NFL, that the quarterback sometimes gets too much credit for this team's success and not enough, and also takes too much blame. I'm sorry for the team's failures. And I think that's probably a good way to put it with Eli. And he was so perfect for New York. If I could tell a story real quick, I don't know if you can see the sign behind me. That's the cover of my book, Big 50. I wrote a book on the New York Giants. It's actually been out now a year, but I'm going to tell you a story from that book.
Okay.
So I asked Ernie Accorsi, I said to him, how did you know that Eli was the guy, that he was going to be okay in this market? Because the New York market, I don't have to tell you, it's a tough market.
Oh,
the media is, we can be, unforgiving. So I asked Ernie, I said, how did you know? Eli had obviously all the football intangibles and all that stuff. So he told me this story, and it's really great. He said one time he went down for, Eli was having a workout, and he was down there. Ernie was down there with Tom Coughlin and Eli's agent, Tom Condon. And J.P. Losman showed up unexpectedly. And Peyton was also down there. Peyton Manning was down there to watch the workout and, kind of be, I guess, a support thing. So Peyton, who we all know has a little bit more of a fiery side than Eli, went ballistic. How dare J.P. Losman show up? Who does he think he is? So he was afraid that I guess Losman was going to show up Eli at his workout. So Ernie Accorsi asked Tom Condon, he says, what does Eli think about all this? And Tom just shrugged and he said, Eli doesn't give a damn. And so Ernie said, that's how I knew. When he said that Eli didn't give a damn, nothing fazed this guy. Nothing bothered him.
Nothing.
I just did a podcast last Friday for Locked On. It's on my Locked On YouTube channel. And I told a story about the times that Eli showed his quote unquote human side, because a lot of people would say, "Oh, he's a robot."
Mechanical, yeah.
He never showed me emotion. And I
Yes,
told
man.
a story about the time, when he was benched, how he showed emotion and how he fought like heck to keep back the tears. And I told a story about a special gift that I was able to give him. Now, I don't normally give gifts. And this gift wasn't, it wasn't like a box with something in it, but it was me kind of, I knew Eli was a Seinfeld fan, and I was able to come across on my show. I had one of the actors from Seinfeld who was a big Giant fan, and it was the guy who played Kenny Bania. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Seinfeld, but the actor who played Steve Heitner played Kenny Bania.
Okay.
So he said to me after we were done recording my show, he goes, "Man, I don't know how Eli's putting up with all this," because this was, late in Eli's career, and he was going through all the garbage he was going through, which was all on him. So he says to me, "I'd like to send Eli a message. How can I send him a message?" I said, "Well, I have my recorder here. Why don't you just record your message, and I'll play it for him." So he said, "Okay, fine." So he recorded a short message, and you can hear this message again. It's on my show from Friday. And I went to the locker room the following week, and I waited out Eli after he had done his grouping. And I said, "I got something for you that I guarantee you don't have." And he got intrigued. He goes, "Okay, what he's thinking to himself, what could you possibly have that I don't have and want, no less?"
Right.
So I said to him, "Do you know who Steve Heitner is?" And he looked at me and goes, "No idea." So I said to him, "That's gold, Jerry. That's gold." Now, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know what that was. That was Kenny Bania's, one of his catchphrases. So Eli looked at me and goes, "No way." I said, something like this. So he goes, "What do you got?" So I held up my tape recorder. I said, "I got a message from the man himself, Mr. Kenny Bania, aka Steve Heitner." The eyes got wide like saucers. It was so cute. It really was. Unfortunately, Eli had to leave the room because he had to do a conference call with the opposing team. But he says, "Are you going to be back tomorrow?"
I said, "You want to talk to him?"
So I said to him, "Yeah, I'll be back." So the next day, Eli wasn't supposed to talk. And, the rule of thumb was if you saw him in the locker room, you could say hello, but you weren't really supposed to talk to him. So I saw him, and he kind of gestured me over. Come on. So I went over with the tape recorder. I said, "Okay, you ready?" And of course, PR comes over to me and they go, "Come on, Patty, you know the rules. You're not supposed to." And Eli's like, No. This is okay. I asked for this. Yeah, chill out. Exactly.
For the first time, geez, back off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I played the message, and Eli is sitting there, and he is a huge Seinfeld fan. I mean, he never missed that show. I think he still watches it in reruns. And when he was done with that, he just looks up at me and he goes, "That was freaking awesome." and he said it with the Eli face, like the stone face.
Yeah.
And I said, I was busting on him. I said, "That's the best you got for me?" I said, "Come on, man. I took a risk here doing this."
Yeah.
So he's like, "It's all good." So it was just a cute story, I thought. And I don't normally bring messages to the locker room for players, but that one I just, it just kind of felt right. And I told PR,
Definitely.
Gave them a heads up, and we were all good on that. But that was a fond memory I had.
Good.
Yeah, I love Eli. Actually, he's like, no matter what, he reminds me of my brother. He could be, jubilant. He could be exalted. He could be pissed. He could be, all these things, but he's still like the same person, like in his face and his facial expressions. But he always got it together mentally. He's never like, incapacitated mentally, and he's thinking logically all the time. And I think from hearing your story, it was more like an Eli mechanism for him to deal with the market, to deal with the football team, to deal with what he was dealing with, to have success there, and that makes a lot of sense to me. It actually makes a lot of sense to me. It wasn't like it was a innate of him to be like that, but it was more like a mechanism for him to deal with everything going on around him, and just what a he is a legend, and the numbers don't lie, and he will be in the Hall of Fame. And those games and David Tyree and just that was just miraculous. That was just
CT, CT, I'm sorry, CT, we're running long on the show. We appreciate your time, man. But
Thank you, CT.
come back next week. But thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. That was a cool story.
It was awesome.
Yeah, man.
Check out my podcast. I got more of them. I mean, if you get a chance, you want to see the whole tribute. I mean, I got stuff from David Cutcliffe talking about, Eli Manning's character. I mean, I'm really proud of that show. It's on the YouTube channel under Locked On Giants. If you want to see it, it was Friday's show.
Yeah, she, Ross is over the Locked On. Ross.
Yes, I have him tomorrow. Yes, that show's tomorrow.
All right. Well, cool. All right, guys, let's go into predictions. I see a couple guys put chats out there already what their predictions will be with the New York Football Giants against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are back at home. Oh, man, that feels good. People are going to be in the dome, rocking the dome. Patricia, you're going to be there, right?
I wish.
You wish?
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not.
Oh, okay. All right.
Blame the darn pandemic. Got to be careful, man. Pre-existing conditions with health, being a cancer survivor and everything, doctors are like, I still wear masks around the facility and in the press box, even though I'm vaccinated and all that stuff. But, I just got to be careful. So
look, we were in Jacksonville for the season opener, and we were in the press box wearing masks. So yeah, I understand. Well, look,
but I'll be there in spirit. You know that.
You'll be there in spirit. All right. Well, cool. And we're going to end the show, but I want to have you to stay on for a quick sec. But what's your prediction, Patricia?
Oh man, I don't feel good about it. I mean. I really don't. I mean, they've lost Blake Martinez, so I've got to see how they're going to handle that, especially, like I said, against Alvin Kamara. New offensive line combination in a loud building. And don't make no mistake about it, the folks there are going to be stoked because, as you said, first game since January 17th, the playoff game?
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to be stoked, the fans. So, I don't know if it's going to be necessarily like a big blowout, like it's been in the past. Mm-hmm. We're talking like 49 to 59, but that said, I think I got to go with the Saints on this one. I mean, I have too many questions where the Giants are at. Can they fix some of these problems that they've had with the play calling, with the scheme? Can they get some of these guys open? Like I said, they're going to be without a couple receivers, probably in Shepard and Slayton. I've got too many question marks to sit here and say that I feel confident. And then, like I said earlier, they got to show me, give me a reason to be hopeful. And I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've seen flashes here and there, but big deal. I got to see more. I'm greedy. Right. What can I say?
All right. Patricia goes with the New Orleans Saints. Bobo, what's your prediction?
I'll tell you, everything that I've seen about the Giants on film so far this year echoes everything that Patricia has said. With you adding some more to what I've already seen, Patricia. I think this Saints defense could overwhelm the New York offense, especially if their secondary plays up to potential, particularly if Shepard or Slayton are hobbled or don't play at all. So I love the matchup on that side of the ball for the Saints. On offense, I think we're going to see Sean Payton unleash Jameis Winston a little bit, especially early on. If the Saints put a score or two on the board early on in an explosive play, we all three know how loud that dome can get. And I think we'll see that. We'll see Jameis unleashed early. And Kamara has the potential for a monster game, guys. For all the reasons that you pointed out, Patricia. He's so much better athletically than what anything the Giants have in the linebacking core or on the edge. I think they'll get him on track as a receiver. As long as the New Orleans line can protect against that Giants pass rush, especially Leonard Williams, Ojulari, and Lorenzo Carter. I think it's going to be a big day for New Orleans. I'm going to go somewhere in the range of 31-13 Saints.
31-13 Saints. Look, we got Chad. He says it's going to be 26-17. We got John, 34-13 Saints. Wow. And we got CT Crusher, 24-13 New Orleans. Who that, baby? All right. I have it 31-17, the New Orleans Saints. They're going to give up a garbage touchdown late in the game, but I think the New Orleans Saints, I think it's going to have to be where I have to agree with you, Bob. I think Sean Payton has been a little restraining of Winston. And I think the road and being on the road had a lot to do with that as well. And, you know, you got to let a quarterback be the quarterback who he is. You know, he's not Drew Brees, right? And he's definitely not Taysom Hill. You just have to let him be who he is. If he's a gunslinger, get those guys down the field with Deontay Harris, possibly Callaway, you know, as well. So let's see how that translates out on the field on Sunday. All right, Patricia, man, you've been a great guest.
You have. Thank you so much, Patricia.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
A wealth of knowledge, guys. Patricia, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Patricia_Traina, Traina. And no, I'm not related to Jimmy. I get that question a lot. He's not my husband. Great guy, by the way, but not related. You can find me on the Locked On Giants podcast. I am the solo host. And as Kyle, you mentioned, I do have Ross Jackson, who is the Locked On Saints host. So he is on the program tomorrow, and I'm on his show as well. And I do have a YouTube channel for that. So that's under Locked On Giants. You can also find me at Giants Country, which is part of the SI Fan Nation network, just like, you know, the Saints News Network is. So I've got all kinds of stuff. We're breaking down the Saints. We've got keys to the game coming up. We just did the personnel. Tomorrow we're doing the offense, like I said. And if you want to find out all the little nuances going on with the Giants, we're covering them from A to Z. So please check us out. We got message boards there. If you want to drop us a comment, we, you know, welcome all feedback. Just keep it nice, obviously. No trolling. And this was great, guys. And, you know, may the best team win. And good luck to everybody, and especially to the Saints the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. Hold on with us, Patricia. Babo, tell everybody how they can find you on the internet.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you so much for tuning in for us tonight. I love being on the air and doing this product for you folks. Patricia, thank you again for your wonderful stories and for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Folks, you can follow me over on Facebook, Bob Rose. And you can follow me on Twitter at BobbyR2613. And obviously all of Kyle's, myself, John Hendricks, Brendan Boylan's work at the Saints News Network on Facebook, or at Saints News, and the SI.com team channel on Fan Nation for New Orleans Saints coverage.
Yeah, definitely. And also don't forget our YouTube channel, guys. Go to our YouTube channel, Saints News Network, out there on the internet, as well as you can catch me at KT Mose, and you can also follow me on HBCU Legends, our brand new website from Sports Illustrated Fans Nation's team channel. We had a fantastic first month, and that has a lot to do with people following and have a great interest in the historical Black colleges and universities out there in the SWAC, MEAC, as well as on the East Coast with those other legendary schools. So, all right, Patricia, thank you very much. Bobo, brother, thank you. And who that, baby? Fans, let's have a great time on Sunday when the Saints go marching back into Caesar's Superdome. All right. Y'all take care. Bye.